Welcome. I am so excited today to have the great General Russel Honore with us. Thank you so much for joining us, General.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. For most of the people in Louisiana, very well know Lieutenant General Russel Honore, but for those of you listening outside of Louisiana, I can bring you up to speed. The general became a national household name when the levees broke 16 years ago during Hurricane Katrina. His no-nonsense leadership when he arrived in all that chaos, combined with his phrase, "Don't get stuck on stupid," made him famous. And at the first of this year, 2021, the general was catapulted back into the national spotlight. A week after the January 6th Capitol insurrection, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi appointed General Honore to review the security and infrastructure at the historic building. The general and his team finished the review in March, and now they're urging Congress to pass emergency legislation to fund their recommended security enhancements. Between these two deployments, the general, who lives in Baton Rouge, leads what he calls the Green Army, an alliance of community and environmental groups fighting for clean air and water initiatives in the Pelican State, Louisiana. When the general is not working, he spends time in his garden with his parade horse, Big Red. General, I would like to take just a minute to talk about your parade horse, if that's all right. I've been wondering, what qualities does a parade horse have to have? I mean, does he have to have the quality to be calm when all these people run up to him and pat his nose at a parade?
In terms of the trade, he has to be a well-broke horse. He's not spooked by sound or people or machinery. And when you get off of him, he stays in park. He's not an excited animal. And I got him when he was 12 years old, and now he's 23. And he's a well-broke horse, and he still maintained his good looks, which is another thing. People like to see beautiful animals, and he's still a beautiful animal. So those are the attributes.
Big Red is a beautiful horse. So thank you for sharing that. Does he have to have a special type of walk where he brings his legs up high in the air, or is that something that a
No, you
frilly
might
thing?
see, I know a lot of folks might watch, when you watch it Facebook, they'll scream parade horses that a lot of them come from Mexico, but a lot of them in the United States, the walkers and the dancing horses out of Mexico. But that Red doesn't do that. He's one step from being a cow horse and was a racehorse, but that takes a lot of special training. In many ways, it's very cruel training to make them do that walk, because that's not a normal walk for a horse. So Red don't play that. I don't ask him to do it, and we just walk.
Well, thank you for bringing that. I've always been wondering about what is a parade horse. So I really would like to talk today and share with our listeners about the work you've been doing in Washington, D.C. Can you bring us up to speed a little bit on that?
Yeah, we completed our report and turned it in mid-March. It included 78 pages and over 100 recommendations. The highlight of those recommendations was improving intelligence sharing, increase the size of the intelligence staff, increase the number of officers. They were almost 300 officers short now. When we turned our report in, there were 233 officers short. And I understand that number has grown now to 300. So we need to replace those, and we need to add more officers, because we need more officers in intelligence, and we need more officers on dignitary protection, because the need for dignitary protection has increased fourfold based on the number of threats in the last year toward members of Congress. So that needs to be done. The other thing that was obvious to all, we need to have heart in the Capitol. We need to, the doors, the windows, increase the type of security we have at the Capitol with new cameras and sensors, state-of-the-art equipment, similar to what they have at the Pentagon. And we recommended a quick reaction force from the National Guard be on standby at the Armory for when they're needed. That came to about $1.9 billion, with a good part of that 1.9 billion in the proposed supplemental, which got out of the House but is stuck in the Senate right now, would be to pay for money people spent since 1/6 event. So about half of it go toward improvements. But the supplemental will work because we still have next year's budget to be able to add more of the long-term fixes that need to be made for the Capitol Police, such as make their retirement system equal to that of the Park Police. Right now, folks talk about the morale of the Capitol Police. One thing that affects it is that they do not get equal retirement pay to the Park Police, which is about $6,000 a year less for equal time in service. So the Congress need to fix that, but they can fix that with the annual budget that they turn in. But the supplemental is sitting in the Senate now, and hopefully that'll get passed.
And as you say, General, the Capitol is a target 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So I hope, General, that this is all a no-brainer. So again, today is the maiden launch episode of Beat the Big Guys podcast. So I want to talk today about something that stops so many people from taking on the big guys. They stop in their track, they don't even start, and that is people feel they need to be an expert in whatever that field is, wherever those big guys are. And you look at me, I'm not a civil engineer, but I took on the biggest, most powerful engineering outfit in the world and won. I didn't even have an engineering course in college or high school. So, and if I can do it, I know anyone can. So we're going to talk about that today. And to start out, General, here, I'm holding my book in my hand. And
beautiful book.
Thank you. Thank you. And you wrote a testimonial for me, and you started it out by saying, there are only a few civilians that fight like real warriors. Sandy Rosenthal is one of them. So, General, can you elaborate a little with our listeners what you meant when you wrote that?
Yes. What I was attempting to say, and I will try to explain it now, is it's intriguing to see you take on this mission, the mission to find the truth with what happened in New Orleans and in the surrounding area during Hurricane Katrina. And, you know, we asked our soldiers, they raise their right hand and they swear themselves to an oath. And we send them to training and they become a part of a unit. The analogy I'm making for you is you swore yourself to a mission, to an oath, to find out the truth. And we certainly don't pay our soldiers for what we asked them to do, and nobody's paid you to do what you did. The time, treasure, talent, commitment, you took this as a mission. And you have laid open to people in academics, people in research, people in policy, and those in making the laws that we need to do better. And when you're taking on the big guys, as you call them, in many ways, they have a vulnerable spot. Number one, they change over every couple of years. Mm-hmm. And they say things and do things to that protect the the popularity of their political ambitions. That is what I think attribute to your ability to continue to speak the truth over multiple leaders in the government. And I say the government because it wasn't just the Corps, it was the levy district, it was the levy board, it was the state. A lot of an industry, all of them played their hand in not doing as much as they could to prevent our levy systems from failing. So my hat's off to you, and you do work, act, and committed like a soldier.
Well, General, that really brought tears to my eyes. I had to calm down for a moment, put my glasses back on, and thank you so much for that. But I really think you've crystallized that you don't need to be an expert in that field. And in fact, I'm going to add to that that being an expert can actually be a bit of a liability. If I had been a civil engineer, I would have been worried about my career. I would have been worried about, will the Army Corps give me any work if I speak out against them? I would have had to been worried about retaliation, which the Army Corps has been known to do. So that's one way, just one example of how being an expert can actually work against you. And also, if I had been an expert, I would be worried I might make a mistake. Since I was a civilian speaking out on behalf of the public good, a burden is taken off of me. I have the freedom of speech, and if I make a mistake, it's okay. My heart's in the right place. So don't let the fact that you're not an expert stop you from beating the big guys in your life. I'm saying this to the listeners now. Furthermore, the big guys, whoever that might be, are less suspicious of someone who's not an expert, and doors may open that would not have been opened otherwise. Because there have been many times along my path where people assumed I was either stupid or naive or both. Turned up I wasn't, and I think that actually opened doors for me that might not have been opened. I will give out this one caution though, that your opposition, whoever they are, may use the fact that you're not an expert against you. For example, when I started sounding the alarm and fighting to get the truth out, many people criticized me by saying, well, she's not an engineer, or saying things like, well, suddenly everybody's a levee expert. Okay, that's the criticism that can come from not being expert. Just ignore it. Just ignore it. They got nothing else to throw at you, so they're going to throw that at you. So, General, you were criticized when you began to lead the Green Army. I recall you were asked, well, General, if you care about the environment, why do you drive a gas-powered truck? And if I recall, you responded, correct me if I'm wrong, well, right now I have oil on my boots.
Yes.
Is that right? So,
Yes.
so what's your advice for potential leaders who get criticized because they're not an expert?
Well, be expect that's an old play by the oil and gas companies for those who try to take on the system and said, hey, we've got to do better. We need to reduce pollution. And right now, that's the way we get where we're going. It's not we hate the oil and gas companies. We don't like the fact that they've left over 60,000 abandoned oil wells in Louisiana, which wasn't supposed to happen. But since they control the legislature, they've been able to do that. We don't
Right.
like the fact that they flare at their refineries. They don't have to be flaring. All that stuff they're burning off could be used as a source of energy to do something else with it, but it's cheaper to do it that way.
Wow, General, do you mean all those flares I see as I drive in the interstate? I can see the flares every day.
Right.
That can be used, and they're
That
just
is
burning it?
excess energy that they have built up that they got to burn off.
Wow, wow. And we
There's
have
no
the
reason.
technology, but they
The
don't use it.
technology is there. They won't spend the money on it.
Wow.
And they have a bad problem with keeping the chemicals inside their pipes.
Mm, mm.
Nor do they want to modernize their plants. The DACA plant there in Reserve, Louisiana, to speak to one that emits a chemical known as chloroprene. Well, the National Scientists Association said chloroprene is toxic. This is where we get in the do loop of stupidity in the government. But since the Congress has never approved chloroprene as being toxic, the EPA and the Department of Environmental Quality continue to allow this company to operate.
Wow.
The national scientists collectively believe the safe area is 0.2. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.02. The closest they've ever come is 98.
Wow. Wow.
And that came through reduced production.
Mhm.
And this fight has been going on for since I'm a decade now, since I've been involved, going in and out of St. John Parish in reserve with this plant. The plant's still open and operating today. And even trying to go to the courts, it takes forever to get a case through the court. And guess what? There's a school a quarter mile from the plant.
A school for
Elementary
how
school.
an elementary school. Wow.
Right. St. John Parish, we tried to convince them to move those children. You're talking about taking on giants. And
Wow.
the school board met, they were ready to do it because they have excess capacity in other schools. At the last minute, they decided not to do it. The people who live in those houses near the school, one of them called me and the lady said, well, my kids go to school there. If they move the kids away from that school, what's going to happen to the price of my house? Nobody's going to want to buy it when we leave.
Golden handcuffs, they call them.
So here we go, and this plant is still spewing chloroprene. The good news is 2 weeks ago, as I recall, there's a finding from the EPA that classifies chloroprene as a toxin. So hopefully we'll see something coming, and the state will enforce the Clean Air Act and force them to fix it or close it. But that is the only plant in America that makes this chemical that is an enabler to make things like tennis shoes. It's the only plant in America. There was one in Seattle, it closed a decade ago. There was one in Louisville, it was forced to close after a major court filing and class action suit. And they sold that plant to a company from Japan. And Danka is now owned by a Japanese company.
General, if there's any of our listeners that would like to join you, like to join the Green Army, can you direct them to a website or call you? What can they do to join you?
The Green Army is a guerrilla army.
Okay.
We've got a bank account with about $2,800 in it. When I started the Green Army, it was on a whim after a conference we had down in New Orleans. I think you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Where we were talking about environmental justice. And somebody said, General, why don't you start the Green Army and pull everybody together? And that's what we attempted to do. Our major effort is around legislation and to go out when the call come that there's a problem in the community and bring attention of the government and the media to it.
So what would you ask any of our listeners that would like to join this guerrilla army? What would you suggest they do?
You can go at all small letters at Green Army, all one word, .org on Facebook, and you can join.
Thank you, General. Thank you.
It doesn't cost you nothing.
Even better. Thank you, General.
The uniqueness of the Green Army is we think we got to find solutions to pollution.
Yes.
It's not a mission to end fossil fuel, not a mission to do anything other than finding solutions to pollution. And
thank you, General, for your decade of work in that area. We all appreciate it so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add for our listeners who have joined today because they want to know how to beat the big guys? Do you have any last secrets or advice you can tell someone that has a problem in their town or community and feel that there's nothing they can do? What would you say to them?
Well, one thing that's a short version is take a look at my TED Talk. I'm just telling you, it's a short version of be a resilient citizen.
Okay.
And work yourself to be a resilient leader. Meaning being involved in what's going on in your community. And to get people in the community to be interested in what's happening in the community. Because the only one going to save us is us. If you go out on your porch every night and you smelling toxic fumes that make you go inside, you need to start organizing your people to figure out where it's coming from. If you go out on your porch at night and it makes you sick, you need to go in and call 911. If you're the only one, call a lawyer. If the whole community is smelling the same stuff, you need to organize and go to your parish or city council and raise some hell,
And
because
beat the
that should
big
not be
guys.
happening. And
And
that's
beat,
what called a resilient leader.
thank you, General. That was an excellent final note. We will be sure to check out that TED Talk. And General, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope all of you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on all of your favorite platforms. And remember, no matter who you are, you can beat the big guys.
Good
Thank
day.
you, General.
Bye, Miss Sandy.
Okay. You have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, Jess, I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope that you can use some of this material for the very first podcast. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.